Hi, I'm Chanelle. A public meeting was held at Castletown Square yesterday about plans for a cannabis farm on the south of the island. How many jobs will be created through the company? Can cannabis kill cancer cells and help with arthritis? How much of energy and water will the facility use? And how long after approval is granted will work begin on the plant? That's just some of the questions put to the Glow Lab team. According to them, once they get the green light, they can have phase 1 of the facility up and running within 12 months. Alex Frey is the founder.
I think we had a really good turnout. I think there's probably more than 50 people here, which shows that people actually care about what we're doing. I thought there was some really good questions as well, the Q&A. There was a good sort of half an hour of Q&A. So, yeah, I'm delighted that there was the buy-in from the local community to come out here and learn a bit more about what we're doing. And it was live and unfiltered, so anyone could ask whatever they wanted, and they did.
How long before we know the status of the application?
It's a very good question, and I don't know. We have submitted it a while ago, and we are engaging with stakeholders in that process. And so far, that process has been pretty constructive, and hopefully, we'll find out how it's all going to pan out very soon.
And with today's meeting, what was the reason for having this meeting?
Mainly transparency. You know, we talk about being a community-based business, and it was, actions speak louder than words, and it's us engaging with the local community. So we've been talking to the local commissioners of Maloo and Castletown on and off for 2 or 3 years, but this was an opportunity to really take those conversations public and do it out in the open with everyone.
What is your understanding of the community? Is the community leaning more towards it? Are they more against it and afraid of having it in the area? Is it a mixed bag?
We get overwhelmingly positive feedback, and I think the stigma of cannabis is changing. And 20 years ago, we probably would have had a lot more resistance. But I've been pleased and initially a little bit surprised at how it's 90% positive messages that we receive. Yeah, we did Man in Line a year or two ago, and I was expecting maybe some rough questions, and actually it was all really positive. So I think the times are changing, and I think most people now know someone that has used cannabis therapeutically. So I think belief systems are changing, and I think that the future is looking pretty good for this sector.
If approved, I know you guys said the facility can be up and running in the first 12 months if approved. If it's not approved, what happens then? Do you still try? Do you look at another jurisdiction?
It's going to be approved, Chanelle. Exactly. You've got to be, if you want to work in cannabis, you've got to be positive, because it's a challenging industry to work in. And I am an optimist, and I think it will be approved. We're engaging with all the right people in what we think is the right way, in a constructive way. We're trying to take on board people's concerns and address them, and ensure that this is a successful project.
And you've also taken into consideration the environmental impact, the impact on how much of water you'll be using, as well as the possible impact on the airport. Tell me about all of those.
Yeah, it's about really using the energy as efficiently as possible. So buying the most energy efficient lights as possible, and then making sure that every kilowatt of energy that goes into that light to create lumens is then either used for photosynthesis in the plant, and the waste heat that in some facilities would be vented out into the atmosphere is not. We capture that using a heat source pump, and we use that to heat other areas of the building. And so it's about being very clever hopefully very clever with the usage of that energy. Harvesting rainwater. We've got a big roof, so it collects a lot of rain. We need to clean the water, whether we take it out the tap or the rain. So if we harvest the rain, then that reduces the amount of water we need to take from Manx Utilities, and then we can recycle it. We've got a fully enclosed cultivation philosophy, so there's no ventilating out into the atmosphere, which is good for odour control, but it's also good for being able to recycle things like water that gets transpired from the plants in the form of like vapour, and then we can take it out, clean it, put it back into the system.
How much is something like this needed on the island?
Well, I think this aligns very well with the economic strategy for the island, and there's a stated aim in the economic strategy for diversifying the economy, to find new sectors, to find sectors where it's a high value product, which are going to play to our strengths on the island. So I think this is very much needed on the island.
And I know earlier you guys gave figures, but if you could tell me again, what's the volume that you can produce?
So we will be building this facility in phases, and phase 1 is smaller than phase 2 and phase 3 in terms of production capacity. However, when the full thing is built, we expect 11 tonnes, so 11,000 kilos of grade A flower, and then there will be what we're terming the grade B flower, which will go into extraction, and we'll have extracted cannabinoids and terpenes from that. And those extracts will probably be in flower form another 5 tonnes, but in extract form probably about 1 tonne.
Can I be cheeky and ask about costs? How much do you think it'll cost to once you get approval?
So our architects have designed this in a modular way, so we can flex our construction costs depending on how many of these modules we build. And phase 1 will cost between £5 and £8 million, depending on how big we make phase 1.
Carly Barton is the first British patient to be legally prescribed with herbal cannabis. She's at the forefront of patient access to medicinal cannabis.
So when I was 21, I was on a chemo ward for 12 months because I had a really horrific blood condition. And throughout those 12 months, as you can imagine, on a chemo ward, some people survived, some people didn't survive, and it was a really significant time in my life, and this was in Liverpool. And the one person that kept me sane throughout that whole 12 months was an amazing person called Caroline. And Caroline was from the Isle of Man, and she was being treated over there for leukemia because that was the best hospital to treat her leukemia. And she was fantastic. And so, unfortunately, I survived. Caroline didn't make it, and she had a very young son at the time who's grown up now. So my journey with my health started with her, in combination with her. So after that, I had suffered a stroke. I ended up on barbiturates, on diazepam, on fentanyl, on morphine for chronic pain. That was when I was 24, so I lived for 6 years on a significant amount of pharmaceutical drugs, unable to do the simplest of tasks: cut up toast, make a cup of tea, walk the dog. And I got to the point where I was suicidal and just didn't want to be here because I was just in so much pain that I just couldn't see how another day could happen for me. And it was at that point that I tried cannabis, and cannabis totally changed my life at that point because it was the first time in those 6 years that I've ever experienced a pain-free state in my body. So I went on to campaign around cannabis. I was the first person in the UK to get a cannabis prescription when the law changed. I then went on to form an advocacy platform for people who are utilising cannabis. We've got 85,000 members in the UK now. And I'm really pleased to say that now I'm working with Grow Lab Organics, and we're about to build a farm on Caroline's land, which is really important to me because I always felt that I still have quite a lot of survivor's guilt about that, and I've spent the time since she died helping people with leukemia get better with cannabis, and now I'm here growing cannabis on her land with the blessing of her family and friends, and some of which are actually part of the company themselves, so it's a really big, important part for me. It's a really personal story.
You also spoke about the work that you do with the authorities and how people are desperate to get that help in areas where it's not allowed. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so as I said, we have 85,000 patients in the UK consuming cannabis for medicinal reasons. The majority of them do not have a prescription because they can't afford one. And that is because they're unwell, really unwell. Like, we're talking significantly unwell. People who are unable to leave the house, people who have Parkinson's, people who have MS, people who have significant seizure disorders. The most vulnerable people in our society who have tried every kind of medicine known to man. And there is 1.8 million of them already consuming cannabis for medicinal reasons in the UK alone. And those people at the moment are stuck because they can't afford to access legally. When they do, the quality is awful. And when I say awful, I mean significantly terrible, to the point where it is mouldy. And so they're having to access via street dealers, via means they don't know where this product's come from. So it could have been criminal gangs, it could have been that their son's been beaten up for it. You know, we've got people going out in the middle of the night to try and get their medicine from people that they've never met before, and they're putting themselves in really, really vulnerable situations. And not only that, but they're also told that they should go and get a prescription. They can't afford that, so they're stuck. They're stuck, really, really stuck, and we need to do something for those people.
And here on the Isle of Man, do we know if it's even a possibility that things like that is happening here? People are trying to maybe self-treat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we live in a world at the moment where we've got the internet. Like, we can't hide the medicinal qualities of this plant any longer. Everywhere you look, on Netflix, how many shows are on Netflix about the power of cannabis and how it can help your health? There will be people in every corner on this very island struggling with their health. And some of them will be accessing really dangerously.
So is this a way to kind of safeguard them as well?
100%. You know, when you're accessing via the street, you're getting it handed over in a dirty bag. You've got no idea what strain that is, what it's going to do to you. Has it been sprayed? How has it been grown? You know, what is it? If it's great, am I going to be able to get this again to stop my seizures for long enough to be able to pick my kids up from school? That's the reality of the situation. We're talking everyday, simple things that this plant helps with.
Have you spoken to anyone, or have you had people approach you from the island that says we can't wait for this to get the approval?
Patients, no. But, you know, I think what we're talking about here is that we've got essentially a square full of people, who most of which have turned out in support of this. And I think the reality of the situation is cannabis doesn't discriminate, and ill health doesn't discriminate. Every single person who was sat in those deck chairs tonight will at some point know somebody who's got cancer, who's got arthritis, who's got MS. The drugs don't work for them. Then what?
Perfect. Anything else you want to add or you want to say?
That's cool. I'm good.
I think my last question, so you work with the police in the UK. You haven't, there's no work yet with the Isle of Man police or the Isle of Man authorities yet?
Working on it though.
Local MHK Tim Glover told me he was impressed with the transparency during the meeting.
And they had answers for all the questions. I've been talking to these people for quite some time now, particularly Alex Frey, introduced them to government as well. And he's engaged with the local MHKs, local commissioners, obviously now with the enterprise department, who are helping with their planning process. So they are an extremely professional outfit. It's going to bring jobs to the Isle of Man in stages, and also jobs to the south of the island.
Coming into this meeting, did you have any concerns, or did you have any of the concerns of the residents in the area?
There have been a few concerns expressed, but I think in the main, you've seen here this evening, people are pretty excited by this prospect. I mean, the whole medicinal cannabis sector is so highly regulated, and these people seem to really know what they're doing, and that's come across here. And I take my hat off to them that they've come and put themselves out before the public and to answer any of those concerns. They've been very, very transparent, and I think they will continue to be so.
They spoke about the impact on climate change. They spoke about the gas use, the water use, the lights as well, so it doesn't disturb with the airport. Are you impressed by that?
Impressed. I mean, they're hoping not to use any water because they're going to use grey water captured from the roof. And also from the condensation that will be created from inside. They're going to be recycling that. There's air source heat pumps being talked about as well. Obviously something like this is going to use a big amount of electricity, but as they've explained here this evening, some of the numbers that have been put out, and because of the methods that they're going to employ, it's not going to be that big a significant amount that people have previously spoken about.
But what do the residents think?
Basically, I've been sort of like supporting this for a few years now over here on the Isle of Man, and we've worked with Alex quite a bit and been many meetings with him. And I'm here totally to support what he's doing. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I think I want to see it go ahead and move forward. And I think he's done well to get this far.
I've just come down to find out a bit more about the facility, find out a bit more about the company, and just to support the venture.
And I'm sure coming down you would have had more questions, and do you feel as though it's been answered?
Yes, I think they've answered that quite well, and they've shown what their plan is and what the way they're going to proceed with it. And I think they've come out and they've brought a good crowd of people out today to come and I feel like they're supporting them.
Yeah, I feel like they've been able to demonstrate the amount of time and effort they've put into things like sustainability, quality of the product, how it's going to be done. And coming out and trying to engage with the local community is something that you don't see all the time as well. So it's and it's a perfect opportunity to field those questions from the local community as well.
I'm interested in what is going on around the town. This looks like a very, very good prospect for the area. My biggest concern is how it will go with planning, because I don't believe the planning regime is fit for purpose, and I just hope that it doesn't get held up like the Castletown Golf Links has been held up. But other than that, crack on. It's going to do a lot of people a lot of good.
Coming into the meeting, did you have any questions that you needed answering, and did you find that you found that?
The question I was going to ask, what was the timeline? Because of through planning, and then if you get planning, how long to build the facility before it produces anything? And that was answered. So yeah, crack on. I'm all for it.
I wanted to know a little bit more about the company who's creating the cannabis over here and their thoughts on how they're going to keep it as sustainable as possible. By the sounds of it, they're an extremely thoughtful company, quite ethical, and I think it's going to do a lot of good to the island, especially around educating people on cannabis. Obviously, there are lots of different people are affected by cannabis differently. Some people are affected really badly by it, but also it has great benefits for things like autoimmune diseases, etc. I think it's really good to grow as the population's growing on the Isle of Man, and we need more people over here. It should create a wealth of jobs, and I think we're lucky to have these guys.
Does it also show that we're also kind of moving with the times, because you've got other countries that's legalizing it, or at least letting people do the medical marijuana route?
Yeah, of course, and I think it's definitely it's beneficial to have experts moving into the industry before we go to full legalization, if we ever get there. With these guys pioneering it over here and growing hopefully some good strains to help a lot of people, it will create a wealth of education for younger generations growing up, and hopefully reduce people getting into trouble with it, especially because, as some of the experts were saying, that it's quite it's hard if you have a medical condition and you need it as medicine. With a company like this who are providing it medicinally, it's very helpful, and hopefully they can give us some good advice as well.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.